The first time Commander Elias Ward saw the alien queen, she was kneeling in the ash. The air inside the shattered council dome smelled of burned metal and old blood. Emergency lights flickered like dying stars. Elias stood frozen at the breach, his pulse loud in his ears, his rifle hanging uselessly at his side. He had trained for first contact, for battle, for betrayal. He had never trained for this feeling in his chest, sharp and heavy at the same time. She was enormous, taller than any human even while kneeling, her back bent under invisible weight. Her exoskeletal crown was cracked, one side melted and blackened as if kissed by fire. Long scars crossed her face and torso, pale and rough, not the clean lines of ceremonial markings, but the ugly truth of survival. Other aliens lay scattered around her, dead or fleeing, and yet all eyes avoided her. Even her own people backed away, pressing themselves to the far walls like she was cursed. Elias felt it then. The silence around her was not fear, it was rejection. The queen lifted her head slowly. One of her eyes was clouded, useless. The other burned with a dim, tired fire. When it met Elias' gaze, something inside him twisted. There was no rage there, no hatred, only expectation, like she had already accepted what came next. "Commander," his second-in-command hissed through the calm. "Orders, that's the target, end it." Elias did not move. His heart hammered. His gloves felt too tight. He had been told the alien queen was a monster, a tyrant, a butcher who ruled by fear, yet monsters did not kneel in ashes while their people turned away. She spoke then. Her voice was low, rough, translated imperfectly through the dome's broken systems. "If you have come to finish this," she said, "do it quickly." Something snapped in Elias' chest. He took one step forward, then another. Weapons rose around him, human soldiers shouting warnings, fingers tense on triggers. The queen did not flinch. She simply closed her good eye, waiting. Elias stopped a few meters away. He lowered his rifle completely. "What happened to you?" he asked. The question surprised everyone, including himself. The queen opened her eye. For the first time, confusion crossed her face. "I failed," she said after a moment. "Failure is not forgiven among my kind." Elias glanced around. The council chamber told its own story, burn marks in precise arcs. Defensive formations shattered from within. This had not been a massacre, it had been a last stand. "Failed how?" Elias pressed. She hesitated. That alone was shocking, a queen hesitating before a human. "I refused to sacrifice a human colony to slow your fleets," she said. "My generals ordered it. I said no. They called it weakness." Elias felt the room tilt. Outside this dome, billions called her a monster. Inside, her own people had branded her a traitor. And here she was, broken and alone, because she had spared humans who would never know her name. A sharp laugh escaped Elias before he could stop it. It was bitter, almost painful. "You saved us," he said quietly, "and they punished you for it." Her gaze sharpened. "You believe me?" "I do," Elias said, and he realized it was true. Behind him, a soldier whispered, "Sir, this is insane." Elias turned his head slightly. "Stand down," he said. His voice did not shake. The queen studied him, truly studied him now. Her mandibles twitched, a sign of uncertainty, maybe even curiosity. "Why?" she asked. "Your kind hates what is broken." Elias thought of his own body, mapped with old burns from the Europa uprising. Of medals handed out by people who had never bled. He met her gaze without flinching. "We admire those who survive," he said, "especially when survival costs everything." For a long moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then alarms screamed through the dome. New signatures appeared on Elias' HUD, alien warships, not retreating, advancing. The queen rose to her full height, towering, wounded, and unbowed. "They have come to erase me," she said, "and anyone who stands near me." Elias smiled, slow and fierce, and raised his rifle again. This time he stood at her side. "Then," he said, as the first explosions shook the sky, "they'll have to go through humanity first." The sky broke open like a wound. Fire rained down in blinding arcs as the first alien warship tore through the upper atmosphere. The council dome trembled, ancient supports screaming in protest. Dust fell like gray snow. Elias barely had time to brace himself before the blast wave slammed into the structure and threw soldiers off their feet. The Queen did not move. She stood tall despite her injuries, her form outlined by burning light. Her remaining eye tracked the warship with cold precision, not fear. Elias noticed how her claws flexed, how pain was pushed aside by instinct and duty. Whatever her people had taken from her, they had not taken that. "Take cover," Elias shouted, grabbing a nearby Marine and dragging him behind a fractured pillar. "Defensive positions, now." Human soldiers scrambled, training snapping into place. Portable shields flared to life. Heavy weapons powered up with familiar hums. The dome echoed with chaos. Yet in the center of it all, the Queen remained still, like the calm eye of a storm. "You should leave," she said over the noise, her voice steady. "They will slaughter you to reach me." Elias glanced at her. "Funny," he replied, firing a burst into the air as a drone breached the dome. "My people say the same thing about us." The drone exploded in a flash of blue fire. Cheers erupted briefly, then died as more shapes filled the sky. This was no rescue mission. This was an execution. "They won't stop," Elias muttered. "Why are they so afraid of you?" The Queen's mandibles tightened. "Because I reminded them we could be more than conquerors," she said, "and nothing terrifies an empire more than change." Another impact rocked the ground. A section of the dome collapsed entirely, exposing the battlefield beyond. Alien troops poured through the breach, their armor marked with symbols Elias did not recognize. Not royal, not council. These were purifiers. "They're not here to arrest you," Elias said grimly. "They're here to erase you." "And anyone who remembers me," she answered. Elias felt something settle inside him then. A hard, clear resolve. He activated his command channel. "All units, this is Ward, new objective. We hold this position, protect the Queen at all costs." There was a pause, a dangerous one. Then his second-in-command spoke. "You heard him," she said. "Form up." The Queen turned her head slowly. "You would defy your own command for me." Elias reloaded, his movements calm. "I've worse," he said. "Besides, if you're right, then you're worth it." For the first time, something like warmth flickered across her alien features. Not a smile, but close. The battle was brutal. Alien soldiers moved with terrifying coordination, their weapons slicing through stone and steel alike. Human Marines responded with stubborn ferocity, dragging wounded comrades back into cover, firing until barrels glowed red. Elias fought at the front, his orders sharp, his mind burning with clarity. Every time he glanced toward the Queen, she was still standing, directing what remained of her loyal guards with quiet authority. At one point, a blast hurled Elias across the floor, his vision blurred. Pain screamed through his ribs, he tasted blood. Before he could recover, a towering purifier loomed over him, blade raised. The Queen moved. She crossed the distance in a heartbeat, faster than Elias thought possible in her condition. Her massive arm slammed into the purifier, shattering its armor with a wet crack. She drove it into the ground and did not stop until it stopped moving. She stood over Elias, chest heaving, ichor dripping from her claws. "Get up, human," she said softly. "I am not finished protecting you." Elias stared up at her, stunned. Then he laughed, breathless and raw. "Guess we're even." She helped him to his feet with surprising gentleness. Her grip was firm, careful not to hurt him. Their eyes met again, closer this time. Something unspoken passed between them, respect, recognition, a fragile bond forged in fire. The moment shattered as the sky darkened. A massive warship descended, blotting out the stars. Its hull was marked with royal sigils, untouched by battle. Power gathered along its spine, enough to vaporize the entire dome. The Queen's posture stiffened. "That is High Executor," she said. "He ordered my death." Elias swallowed. "Can we kill him?" "No," she replied, "but we can make him hesitate." The ship's weapons charged, light building to a blinding intensity. Elias opened a direct channel, broadcasting on every frequency. "This is Commander Elias Ward of the United Human Fleet," he said, voice echoing across the battlefield. You are targeting a protected individual under human authority. A pause, a dangerous one. His voice thundered back, cold and amused. Then humanity will burn with her. Elias glanced at the queen. She met his gaze, scars catching the light. You should regret standing with me, she said quietly. Elias smiled through the pain. I already regret not doing it sooner. The warship's cannon flared. And just before it fired, something unexpected jumped into the line of fire. A colossal shadow blotted out the warship's energy beam. The queen had moved, swift, impossibly fast for her size, even with her injuries. She raised her arms, clawed appendages braced, and the first wave of energy slammed against her. The ground shook, glass shattered, and for a moment the entire battlefield seemed to hold its breath. Elias stumbled to his knees, staring in disbelief. The queen was absorbing the blast. Her scars flared as if they were alive, glowing faintly from the sheer force. Sparks danced across her exoskeleton. Around her, human soldiers cheered, but Elias noticed the tension in their voices. She was barely holding it together. Elias, she rasped, her voice almost lost in the roar of the blast. You should not be here. I'm not leaving, Elias shouted over the noise, gripping his rifle like it was a lifeline. You saved my people, I'm saving you. Her mandibles twitched, her version of a smile, perhaps. She threw back her head and roared. The sound cut through the chaos, raw and terrifying, but there was pain in it, too. Every alien on the field stopped for a moment, watching their queen defy death itself. Even the High Executor's ship slowed its descent, scanning for the anomaly. The queen raised a claw, and Elias realized she wasn't just defending herself. She was creating a shield, a protective dome over the surviving humans. The energy beam fragmented on her exoskeleton, scattering into harmless flashes of light across the battlefield. Soldiers screamed in awe, some falling to their knees in prayer, some just staring, mouths open. Why are you helping us? Elias shouted. He had to get an answer before another wave hit. I chose life, she said simply. Yours, mine, anyone who can survive with honor. Elias felt his chest tighten. That was it, the truth of her being distilled into one simple declaration. Humans had always praised courage, bravery, sacrifice, yet here it was, pure, unadulterated, from an alien whose entire species had turned against her. And she had chosen him, chosen humans. The queen dropped the shield just long enough to strike. She leaped toward the warship's energy conduit, claws raking across the hull. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, and for a terrifying second it looked like she might be vaporized instantly. Elias' heart leapt into his throat. Stop, he shouted, charging forward, pulling a rocket launcher from the ground. I've got this. Human, she called, her voice strained but amused. You are reckless. I'm not letting you die, he screamed. He fired. The rocket struck the ship's flank, tearing a gash in the armored hull. Explosions rippled outward. The queen twisted midair, claws ripping through the ship's energy core. A cascade of light and fire exploded into the sky, brighter than anything Elias had ever seen. The High Executor's ship shuddered, sparks raining down like shooting stars. Then silence. The battlefield froze, everyone waiting for the next strike. The queen fell to her knees, battered, one eye barely open, breathing heavily. Elias ran to her side, dropping to his knees beside her. You, she began, but her words failed. I'm here, Elias said, gripping her clawed hand gently. You're alive, that's what matters. Her eye flickered, studying him. The alien equivalent of curiosity softened her face. Humans, she said quietly, you are remarkable. Elias laughed, a sound raw with relief and awe. Takes one to know one, he said. For a moment the world seemed to stop. Smoke curled around them. Ash drifted like snow. The cries of wounded soldiers and alien refugees filled the distance, but at that moment nothing mattered except the queen and him. Elias, she said slowly, almost reluctantly, why do you admire me? He hesitated, looking at the jagged scars running across her massive body, the fire-scorched crown, the strength in her stance despite exhaustion. Because you didn't just survive, he said. You chose to do what's right when everyone else turned away. That's worth more than any crown or title. Her gaze softened further, but there was still pain in it. And what of my people? Let them shun you, Elias said firmly. They've already lost. You've shown humanity that courage isn't about being perfect. It's about standing when no one else will. For the first time, she allowed herself a small, almost shy movement, leaning slightly closer to him. Their proximity was dangerous. One wrong move could send them both tumbling into chaos. But it didn't matter. Elias could feel the weight of her survival, the pull of her trust, and something deeper began to stir. Then a signal beeped on his wrist. Reinforcements. Human fleets were warping into the system. But something else appeared on the scanner, something unexpected. A massive, unknown shape entering orbit, silent, cold, and calculating. The Queen's eye narrowed. "Not done," she whispered. Elias gritted his teeth, already rising to his feet. "Then neither are we." And together, human and alien Queen, they prepared to face the next storm. The unknown shape loomed above the battlefield, a silent leviathan blocking out the stars. Its surface was dark, reflective, and impossibly massive, like a mirror of the void itself. Elias squinted, scanning it with every sensor at his disposal. No insignia, no visible weapons, yet the energy readings made him shiver. Whatever this was, it was not here to negotiate. The Queen rose beside him, her exoskeleton scorched and battered, but her stance unwavering. She lifted her head, mandibles flexing as she studied the intruder. "This is no fleet I recognize," she muttered. "Something older, something patient." Elias swallowed hard. "Patient, huh? That's comforting." He checked the HUD. His fleet was still deploying, but the humans were no match for whatever was waiting above. Not yet. The Queen's one good eye glinted. "Then we buy time together." "Together," Elias echoed, and a surge of reassurance coursed through him. It wasn't just the battlefield, not just survival. It was her, proud, unyielding, standing with him despite everything. They moved toward the breach, Elias guiding soldiers into cover while the Queen's presence seemed to repel enemy fire. Marines whispered to one another, awestruck, some even praying to a being they had once been told to fear. Elias could hear their doubts, but he didn't care. He only cared that she was alive and that they were both ready to face whatever came next. "Elias," the Queen said, her voice quieter now, almost intimate. "Why do humans care for those they barely know?" He looked at her, heart thundering. "Because sometimes survival isn't enough. Sometimes seeing someone fight for what's right, it matters more than anything else." Her mandibles twitched, a small gesture Elias had come to interpret as a kind of smile. She raised one claw, brushing it gently against the side of his armor. "You admire courage, even in a creature such as I." "And I admire you," he said without hesitation. The words felt heavy and real in the smoke-filled air. "Every scar, every choice, every second you defy the odds." She paused, the moment suspended in the chaos around them. For a fleeting second, the battlefield faded, leaving only the two of them. Then a tremor ran through the ground, snapping him back to reality. The Leviathan above had moved, shifting its shadow across the dome, sending a ripple of fear through both humans and aliens alike. Elias activated the comms, voice sharp. "All units, defensive formations, protect the Queen and hold positions until reinforcements arrive." The Queen nodded, moving with terrifying grace despite her injuries. Her claws tore through a group of advancing alien scouts, leaving sparks and molten metal in her wake. Elias fought alongside her, shoulder to shoulder, instinct and trust guiding their movements. Each time he glanced at her, her scars reminded him not of pain or weakness, but of resilience. The unknown ship pulsed with energy. A beam shot toward the planet's surface, and Elias barely had time to dive behind a fractured wall. The blast tore a crater in the terrain, sending shockwaves that threw soldiers and debris alike. The Queen roared, leaping into the beam, absorbing the energy again. She staggered but didn't fall. Elias scrambled toward her, pulling her down into cover. "How are you still alive?" he yelled, breathless. "I told you," she hissed, teeth grinding. "I survive for those who fight beside me." He looked into her eye, and for the first time he saw something beyond the battle, a vulnerability, a flicker of loneliness he could almost touch. And he knew that this wasn't just about war. It was about trust, about connection, about two beings from different worlds choosing to stand together against impossible odds. "Elias," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly, "if we fall." "You won't," he said firmly, placing a hand on her claw. "Not while I'm standing." Then the Leviathan moved again, closer this time. A bridge of energy began to form between it and the planet. Something inside Elias shifted. This wasn't just a test of strength. It was a test of will, of courage, of the bond he and the Queen had forged in fire. "Ready?" he asked, adrenaline surging. The Queen's claws flexed, her mandibles twitching in that almost smile once more. "Always," she said. And together they stepped into the shadow of the Leviathan, prepared to face a force that threatened to erase everything. But neither of them would stand alone. The ground trembled beneath them. The sky screamed. And in the silence between, a spark of understanding passed. Human and alien and steadfast were bound together now in a way the universe had not anticipated. And then, with a flash that painted the battlefield in blinding white, the Leviathan revealed its first move. The flash of light seared the battlefield, leaving Elias blinking and coughing. When his vision cleared, the Leviathan was no longer just a distant shadow. It had lowered itself closer to the planet, massive tendrils of black energy snaking toward the dome, tearing apart terrain, cutting through vehicles, and igniting the air. Its presence was suffocating, oppressive, a reminder that this fight was far beyond human or alien armies alone. Elias clenched his fists around his rifle, his teeth grinding. "This isn't just another fleet," he muttered. "It's a predator." The Queen, standing beside him, didn't flinch. Her scars gleamed in the eerie light, reflections of every battle she had survived. "It studies fear," she said, her voice steady but low. "It seeks weakness. It will strike hardest where we hesitate." Elias nodded. He had never felt fear like this, not against human enemies, not against alien warlords. This was different. Cold, calculating. And yet, he felt a strange confidence in her presence. Every step she took radiated strength. Every scar, every imperfection told him she had faced horrors before and survived. He could see it in her eye, determination. And something more, something that made his chest tighten in a way he couldn't ignore. Affection, trust. A connection forged in fire, forged in blood, forged in shared defiance of impossible odds. A tendril of dark energy slammed into the ground, sending debris flying. Soldiers screamed, falling under the force. Elias dived for cover, dragging one injured Marine with him. The Queen moved in tandem, her claws shredding the incoming energy, dispersing it in sparks that rained down like fireflies. "You're reckless," she snapped, though there was no anger in her voice, only concern. "And you're amazing," he shot back, grinning despite the smoke and chaos. "But you already knew that." Her mandibles twitched in what could almost be interpreted as a smile. "Focus," she said, almost softly. Elias followed her lead, instinct blending with strategy. Together, they moved like a single unit, him with precision shooting, her with devastating strength. Alien scouts that dared approach were obliterated before they could reach the humans, their armor shredded, sparks flying from every strike. Then a new horror appeared. From the Leviathan's shadow emerged smaller ships, sleek and black, like shards of obsidian cutting through the sky. They were faster, smarter, attacking in coordinated patterns that tested every human tactic. Even the Queen paused for a heartbeat, scanning their formations. "They learn quickly," she muttered, "and they adapt." Elias swallowed, adrenaline coursing through him. "So do we." He activated the comms. "All units, fall back to the reinforced perimeter. Focus fire on those small ships, protect the Queen." The Queen glanced at him, eye narrowing. "You risk everything for me." Elias shrugged, firing as he moved. "I risk everything for the right thing, and right now, standing with you is the right thing." Her claws flexed. "You speak boldly for a fragile species," she said, almost teasing. "I've learned from the best," he shot back, heart hammering as a ship narrowly missed his position. "And you, my Queen, are unstoppable." For a brief, fleeting moment, the chaos of war paused, not because of the battlefield, but because of the silent understanding between them. He admired her courage, her scars, the weight she bore alone. And she acknowledged his, too. A fragile bond of respect and something deeper, something unspoken, flickering amid the inferno. Then the Leviathan struck again. A wave of dark energy tore across the landscape, knocking soldiers off their feet and smashing barricades. Elias grabbed the queen, clawed hand, pulling her back just as the force hit. She looked at him, and for the first time her gaze lingered, not on strategy, not on survival, but on him. "You trust me," she said, barely above a whisper. "I do," he replied, voice shaking with both fear and determination. "And I'll fight to the end for you." Her eyes softened, something tender flickering beneath the scars and armor. "Then we fight together," she said. The Leviathan's tendrils continued to writhe, a wave of black shadow moving over the battlefield. But for the first time, Elias felt a spark of hope. Not because the war was won, not because the enemy could be defeated easily, but because he was no longer alone. He had the alien queen at his side, and together they were unyielding. And somewhere deep in the void above, the Leviathan paused, sensing their unity, recognizing the defiance. The calm before the storm stretched taut. Elias' heart raced. The queen's scars gleamed. And then, with a sound like the universe cracking open, the Leviathan made its next move, one that neither human nor alien could have anticipated. The Leviathan's shadow descended, stretching across the battlefield like a storm cloud. Tendrils of dark energy reached out, crushing armored vehicles and tearing apart the terrain. Its massive form pulsed with power, almost alive, almost sentient. Elias' gut twisted. He had fought alien generals, rogue warlords, and fleets, but nothing had prepared him for this. The queen stepped beside him, towering, her exoskeleton glinting in the eerie light. She flexed her claws, every movement precise and controlled despite the burns and fractures that streaked her body. "It is testing us," she said quietly, her single eye focused and unflinching. "It wants to know our limits, to break us before the final strike." Elias swallowed, gripping his rifle. "Then we show it we have none." They moved as one, human and alien, weaving through fire and debris. Soldiers followed their lead, inspired by the sight of the queen standing unbowed amid chaos. Elias felt a thrill he couldn't name, awe, fear, admiration, and something more, something that made his chest tighten every time he glanced at her. A tendril swung down, striking a barricade. Elias dived, pulling a soldier with him, and the queen leapt forward, slamming her clawed arm into the energy. Sparks flew, burning flesh and steel alike, but she didn't falter. "You're reckless," Elias shouted, coughing through smoke. "Only against those who deserve it," she replied, voice calm, almost teasing. He couldn't help but smile, even as the battlefield shook around them. There was something magnetic about her courage, her refusal to yield, even when all odds were stacked against her. And in that moment, he realized he didn't just respect her. He admired her deeply, entirely. The Leviathan's tendrils recoiled, and its form shifted, revealing a central core, a massive eye glowing with dark intelligence. It pulsed, and Elias felt a wave of fear wash over him, a mental pressure that threatened to crush his will. He staggered, gritting his teeth. "You feel it, don't you?" the queen said, her hand brushing his arm. Her touch was firm, grounding him. "It wants more than victory, it wants obedience, fear, submission." I feel it," he admitted, voice strained, "but we won't give in." Her eye softened, scanning his face. "Good, then stay close." They advanced, stepping over shattered vehicles and the bodies of those who had fallen. The human soldiers followed, inspired, fueled by courage they didn't know they had. Every move, every step forward reinforced the bond between Elias and the queen, a bond forged in fire, in chaos, in mutual recognition of the other's strength. The Leviathan roared, a sound that shook the ground and rattled the air, tendrils whipping violently. A massive strike came down and Elias braced himself, but the queen was faster. She caught the tendril mid-swing, shattering it with a force that sent shockwaves through the ground. You're incredible," he breathed, eyes wide. She glared at him, mandibles twitching. "Focus," she said, but there was a flicker of amusement in her gaze. Elias met her eye, and for a heartbeat everything else faded, the chaos, the smoke, the screams. All that existed was the queen and Defiant, standing beside him, and the raw, unspoken connection that had grown between them. He reached for her clawed hand, tentative but resolute. She didn't pull away. The Leviathan pulsed again, faster this time, tendrils striking in coordinated waves. They were surrounded, overwhelmed, but Elias felt something new, a surge of confidence, of hope, of defiance. He was not alone. He had her, and together they were a force the Leviathan had not anticipated. "Elias," she said, her voice low, intimate, "whatever happens." "We survive," he cut in, gripping her hand. "Together." Her mandibles twitched in what he now recognized as a smile. "Together," she echoed. Then the Leviathan's core flared with blinding light. The battlefield shook violently, debris flying. Elias gritted his teeth, holding tight to her hand, ready to face whatever came next. And in that instant, he realized the truth. They were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for each other, for trust, for the fragile, unspoken bond that had grown in the fire of battle. A bond stronger than fear, stronger than scars, stronger than war itself. The Leviathan struck, and for the first time, Elias felt unafraid. The Leviathan's core exploded in blinding light, sending shockwaves that threw soldiers and debris alike across the battlefield. Elias felt the air leave his lungs, his muscles screaming as he clutched the clawed hand. But she didn't falter. She pulled him up, her strength unwavering, her form a shield against the chaos. "They won't stop," she said, her voice calm, steady. "But neither will we." Elias nodded, heart hammering. "Then let's finish this." Together, they charged forward. Human soldiers followed, inspired by the courage radiating from their unlikely leaders. The Queen's claws tore through the Leviathan's tendrils, each strike resonating with power and precision. Elias fired relentlessly, targeting weak points, anticipating the creature's movements with the clarity only desperation can bring. The Leviathan's core pulsed violently, then split open, revealing a dark, pulsating nucleus, alive, intelligent, aware. It roared in a sound that seemed to reach into their minds, probing, testing, threatening. Elias felt a wave of doubt and fear, but the Queen squeezed his hand. "Focus on me," she said. "Trust in what we've built." He drew in a ragged breath. The bond between them, the trust, the admiration, the unspoken connection, fueled him. He fired with precision, hitting the nucleus repeatedly, buying the Queen time to leap into the heart of the Leviathan. Sparks and energy flared, the creature thrashing violently, tendrils lashing out. She fought with every ounce of strength, every scar marking a testament to survival, every movement precise, fearless, relentless. "Elias," she shouted, claws gripping a vital core conduit. "Now." He aimed his final shot, a concentrated energy round, and fired. The blast struck true, the nucleus shattering with a sound like the world breaking. The Leviathan screamed, a sound that tore through the sky and then collapsed in on itself, its tendrils writhing one last time before going still. Silence fell. The battlefield, battered and broken, seemed to hold its breath. Smoke rose in thick clouds and debris littered the ground. Elias staggered to his knees, gasping for air, and the Queen collapsed beside him. Her exoskeleton was scorched, her body battered, but her one good eye, looked at him with a mix of relief, exhaustion, and something more. "You survived," she whispered, her mandibles twitching faintly. "So did you," Elias said, smiling through the dirt and blood. "And we did it together." For a moment the world around them disappeared. No smoke, no fire, no destruction, only the quiet, fragile bond between human and alien Queen. He reached for her, brushing his hand against hers, careful but insistent. She didn't pull away. "You admire me," she said softly, a vulnerability beneath her strength that surprised him. "I do," he admitted. "Not just for surviving, but for everything you are. Every scar, every choice, every second you stand when the world turns its back. I admire that, I admire you." Her eyes softened. "And I trust you, Elias Ward, more than I ever thought I could trust anyone." Their hands clasped firmly, a silent promise amid the ruins. Around them, soldiers and aliens began to emerge from cover, watching in awe as the Queen, once shunned, now stood victorious, proud, and alive, alongside the human commander who had never turned away. The Queen rose fully, and Elias helped her steady herself. She looked out at the battlefield, at the human fleets and surviving alien forces, and then back at him. "They called me a monster," she said quietly, "but you saw me for what I am." "And I always will," Elias replied, eyes steady, heart pounding. A faint wind stirred, carrying the scent of burned metal and the faint promise of renewal. The war was not over. There would be rebuilding, negotiating, and healing, but they had survived what no one thought possible, together. And in that moment, Elias realized something profound. Sometimes admiration is born not from perfection, but from courage. And sometimes love, strange, unexpected, grows strongest where the world sees only brokenness. The queen's mandibles twitched in a gesture that could only be hope. Elias gripped her hand, and together they faced the horizon. The stars were bright now, scattered across a sky that had once seemed hostile, and somewhere deep inside, both knew the future would be theirs to fight for, side by side. For the first time in a long time, they allowed themselves to hope. And the universe waited.